Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I am your host, Shana James, and I'm excited to be here today to have a deep conversation, I would say, about being a man and allowing yourself to be all of you, who you are at the deepest levels when you are shaped so much by cultural expectations and family expectations and a lot of the man up, suck it up, don't show these parts, which causes a lot of pain and suffering. And so my guest today is here to talk about some of the, more theoretical aspects of being a man, but really we also want to dive into specifics and situations of, what happens when you have a relationship disagreement or what happens when there's a conflict at work or something that you want to, stand up for yourself or speak up for yourself. And how do you not actually lose yourself? So we've got a lot that we are going to talk about and we'll see where this goes. And I'm excited to have Matt Hogan with me today. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, Shana. I I've enjoyed the moments leading up to our conversation today. I was like, today's gonna be a good one. This is gonna be a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, I agree. I think we both have a love for, depth and understanding and really like exploring the pieces of what makes us human and what allows men to be fully themselves. And I know that you sometimes work as a coach and more often you see yourself as a guide for people who want to move toward or embrace the calling in their hearts. And I also know that you have a very intense, life history. You've been through a lot on a journey with yourself. And so I'm wondering if we can start there and then we'll dive into what you've learned about these other pieces.
Yeah. I really look at my life, the last half of my life, nearly 20 years, from the time I was 18 to now, I'm 37. And it all, to me, that this part of my life began with a springboard moment in 2004, where at that time of my life, it was scarier to be alive than to be dead.
Mm.
And so on Thanksgiving 2004, I put a gun to my head and put a bullet in my head. And surprisingly survived, words of the doctors, and then was informed that I would likely never walk again and was in a wheelchair. And went through a period of recovery where I had decided that I would not live that way. And it also became the fire that really ignited my life that still is in my heart today.
Yeah.
And it was also at that time where the first time in my life a vision was born that I could have a good life. That there was something on my heart so much more than all the pressures and all the things that I had been taught and all the things I had been experienced. And so that journey began me as I went through university, where I really focused on what are the skills that I need to navigate this life, to navigate the society, to provide for myself, to
Wow.
feed myself, to care for myself. That further journey took me then, and I'm sharing more of the external journey, haven't
Yeah.
really went into the internal piece of it,
Yeah.
then took me into my corporate work where, I began my corporate work after college with a job that most people were like, this is an amazing job. But within 2 months, I knew in my heart, culturally, it would drain the life out of me. And so I
Yeah.
quit
Yeah.
and then moved back up across the country and then began a near 7-year journey supporting Google, where I built out a team from the ground up. It was a team of 4 people when I took on the first leadership role. By the time I left, I was leading a team of 100
Wow.
and was running a $15 million portfolio.
Wow.
And fast forward from that, around the time that I was leaving there, my fiance and I separated, which served as another turning point
Oh my
where
God.
when she walked out the door, I found myself sitting on the floor of our home that we bought together crying and realizing that I had created this. It was me that had created a lot of what had happened. And it became another point in my life where I was taking that deep ownership and responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings, everything that I've suppressed and ignored.
Ooh.
And that then dove me into the path of what is it to live purposefully?
Yeah.
What is it to truly honor myself, to honor my life and live my life in a way that I can be passionate about, excited about, and really get to the end of my days and say,
Wow.
I lived, I truly lived. That took me out of corporate. That took me around the world for a year. I still live where I'm only in places for 5 or 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
And that also took me into business for myself, supporting people with a similar journey.
Wow.
And
Can we pause for a
yeah,
moment?
yeah,
There's so much. And first of all, I just want to thank you for, sharing the darkest moments and for what it took to come back from that and actually choose life again. And there's something you said when you were talking about it, right? Like seeing that there's more than the pressures and the expectations. And I think so many men I know can relate to that of, um, there's so many things I'm supposed to do. There's so many things the culture says I'm supposed to do and be. And like, how on earth do I actually find me in the midst of that? And how do I make choices based on what would be good for me if that seems selfish, based on what other people are talking about? And then you throw in the Me Too movement, and then you throw in all these other things. And like, it's a lot to navigate being a man today. So I'm curious about the journey for you and, what allowed you to shift from pressure, expectation, this is who I have to be, this is what I have to follow, to okay, who am I actually? What lights me up? What, is meaningful for me? That's a big shift.
a lot of the reasons myself and other men that I've worked with have a challenge with our lives is one, we've lost access to our own inner guidance system, our own true north.
Yeah.
And in doing so and being thrown around by life, our partners, our jobs, our society, we've also lost our self-respect.
Yeah.
And so what helps us gain our own self-respect and stop depending on other people to validate us and make us feel okay is that we truly come to know what is my own inner north and how do I follow that
Mm,
with humility and devotion.
yeah. Beautiful. Can you say a little bit about what you've discovered as your own inner north and how you discovered that?
It's often been messy, but it has become more and more refined over the past 20
Great.
years.
I trust you more that it's messy than if you were to say, yes, it was immediately clear.
There was a lot of learning the hard way for a long time. And some of the examples that really come to me are that first job I had out of college was it was with AT&T, and it was a near 6-figure job right out of college. And as much as I was like, everybody's like, that's great, congratulations, and how wonderful this must be. Like inside of me, I could already feel that it was going to kill me if I stayed there.
Yeah. So you knew
And
that you could feel there was something inside of you that either you heard the words or you felt the energy of it that was just like, no,
right,
can't.
it was just something that I knew, that I sensed, that when I really thought about my future, could I see myself there? And I couldn't.
Yeah.
And that has really been something useful for me is, can I truly see myself here 10 years from now, 5 years from now, being happy?
Yeah.
And that made a big difference for me. And that's just one example. And another example was when I was in my late 20s. And this is on the flip side. So we would call that like maybe a more beautiful opportunity to quit and leave. But in my fast forward a year and or a year and a half, and I had started my work supporting Google.
Mm-hmm.
And I just the same day I got promoted my first manager role, that night I went out drinking and got a DUI and started, and then for the next 3 years was facing prison.
Wow.
And so during that time, I had to really come to know myself because I couldn't drink anymore. I couldn't do anything other than work. I walked around with a bracelet on my ankle for 3 years.
Wow.
And all the while, this unknown future looming. And the only thing I really had to pour myself into that I was passionate about was my work.
Uh-huh.
And there was just this inner compass that kept saying, show to yourself that you can continue to grow your life even amongst these circumstances.
Wow.
Continue to show that you are not this person. You are not the person that did this thing. You made a mistake. You do need to be held accountable for things you do, but that's not who you are.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
had
that's
to like
powerful.
really, that was a really 3 struggling years for me, all amidst the time my sister was killed, my cousin was murdered.
Oh my God.
And it really brought to the surface for me, what is it to know myself? What
Ooh,
is it to honor my own life? And what are all the ways that I'm truly dishonoring myself in my life? And the more evident ones in that case are drinking.
yeah.
And then fast forward all the reasons why I drank. Fast forward to 2017 when my fiance left me and noticed the messy path
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah.
She left me, and I remember the day she left, I'm sitting on the floor in the kitchen crying. And then I hear the same voice I heard the night I shot myself. And it said, this is exactly what you needed. Now you get a chance to really grow up and see what you haven't been looking at.
Wow.
And
I want to say to
go
that,
ahead.
like it can seem so I don't know, cliche or woo woo in some ways to be like, this is an opportunity or this, but I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I've really made that shift in my life that
Mm-hmm.
whatever is happening, there is an opportunity for growth, or there is like, I kind of see it as a soul curriculum, and I find that not everybody necessarily looks at life that way. But if I don't, I fall much more into that sense of victimhood or just like, ugh, it feels bad or heavy and it's not that it doesn't hurt when I decide, okay, how can this grow me or how can this be an opportunity? Um, but it feels more meaningful, or it feels like, right, there's some way that I get to use that for good. And I'm hearing that in what you were saying, even though I'm wearing an ankle bracelet, I can't do anything but work, but I'm gonna not necessarily show even, but I'm going to know for myself who I am. And then I made a mistake, but I'm not that man. Or yes, my marriage
Right.
fell apart or my, engagement fell apart, but I can actually use this to become who I want to be.
You know, I will, admittedly, between the night I shot myself, the getting arrested, my fiance leaving, it can be really, really easy to start blaming other people. It can
Yeah.
be really
I
easy to
mean,
blame the world.
yes.
And I'm not sitting here saying that our world is perfect and that there are not things that happen in our lives that are challenging from other people.
Yeah.
However, what I continue to see over and over, if I continue to come from a place of life happens to me, and so therefore I need to blame, I need to
Yeah.
be angry at, I need to fear. One, we keep ourselves stuck because we're
Yeah.
disowning our own potential and we're actually abdicating our own capacity to
Yeah.
really run our life.
Yeah.
And that further diminishes our self respect and keeps us stuck. And it's a challenging shift. It is. I mean,
It
you can
is.
have those moments where it's like, but she left me.
Right.
She didn't. She wasn't honest with me, and she all these things. That may be, but how did I contribute to that?
Right. Right. That's often when anyone comes to me, when men come to me, I have them, go through a series of questions and like what's been unsatisfying in my life or relationships. And then the most important one, I think, is what was my role in it. And it's not to make ourselves wrong or blame ourselves or think that we're bad. But if we don't actually look at our role, I agree that there's no empowerment, right? If we're blaming others and not seeing our own contribution.
Yeah. And you know that coming back to the inner north, because that is a key piece. That is everything I work with my clients on is like cultivating that knowing.
Yeah.
That's what I've been focused on the last 20 years is like really helping myself sift through the noise inside myself.
Yeah.
That is a mix of what my mother told me about doing this, my father told me about doing this, what I heard from some teacher of mine that told me how things are supposed to be, like all those noises that just bombard us every day from the past and the present with social media and all these things. And really, what is it to turn into myself and go, okay, I'm hearing all of this. I'm hearing that I'm an idiot. I'm hearing that I need to love my wife better. I'm hearing this. I'm hearing this. What's true? What's actually true?
Yeah.
And how do I come to know what is true?
Yeah.
Like for a man, we have to be able to inquire around those things. Otherwise, we will be thrown around in life like children.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of what's happening to us because we do not know how to turn in and really ask those questions and answer them over and over and over.
Right. It's not just once, it's not just 100 times, it's over and over and over again. Yeah.
And what I love that you said so beautifully is it's not about judgment. It's not about criticizing ourselves because I'll tell you, I'm probably one of the experts in the world of self
Me
betrayal,
too.
self
Me
beating
too.
up, self flagellation. The world could never hurt me as much as I could hurt myself.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize how, to some degree, I needed it for a period of time. I needed that self criticism to actually keep me moving. Otherwise, because I didn't have another strategy, I didn't know another way.
Right. Until you have another way, it does orient you or kind of push you forward.
But then it became clearer and clearer that no, there's a better way and a purer way and an easier way.
Yeah.
And it truly comes to this finding this balance and blend in what is it to bring total self honesty to myself in my life, like total ownership.
Yeah.
And willingness to look. And at the same time, complete acceptance for all that I see. When we can find the balance in that, along with that inner guidance, what we see in our lives, the women around us, our relationships, our lives, the world may not always like what we say, and oftentimes it won't.
Yeah.
But we're coming from a place of congruency, and the world feels that.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm thinking of, okay, if we go into a moment where, let's say a man is in a heterosexual relationship and so he's with a woman, it could be any gender, but most of the men who come to me are in relationships with women, and I think a lot of where the fire sometimes happens for men is, oh no, somebody's upset with me, right? Like my wife or partner is upset with me. The fear of she might leave, the fear of like she might never be attracted to me again, or we might never have the sexual relationship again that we had, or there's something where I feel like in that moment, a man who, like you're saying, like isn't clear about his true north or doesn't know how to honor himself while staying connected to another might roll over a little bit or, lose himself or try to appease or try to please. And I'm wondering if you can give any guidance or support or any examples of that in your own life, what that would look like, right? To stay connected, but also stay true to yourself.
Well, before I say what many people may hear is really harsh,
Okay.
I'll say that this is coming from someone who spent many years fearing, identifying with the energy of abandonment wounds and
Yeah.
fearing abandonment. And then, I mean, I actually had a couple of relationships that ended where I was like, I struggled with the fear of loss of love so much that I would have panic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say this from growing through those wounds, those fears, those things I've suppressed that had been with me for years. But when it comes to the partnerships in our life now, if she leaves, my first question is, so what?
Right.
And what I mean by that is not, it's not a dig at, do you love her?
Mm-hmm.
You
Or
probably
does she
do.
love you, or right, any of
Right.
that?
It's like, okay, she leaves. So what? Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that we feel that we can't find our way again?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that we are convinced that if she leaves, that just proves we're worthless?
Mm-hmm.
Does it somehow prove that we're less than? Does it remind us of our mom leaving? Is she really just an image of your mom that you haven't fully worked through yet?
Yeah.
And what we really got to find is that when we find our center, we find our core, we find that place in yourself of increasingly know who I am. I mean, I know a lot of who I am, but I'm still continuing. It's something I'll devote my
Right.
entire life to.
Forever. Yes.
But we come to find that congruence with ourselves, that feeling of, I've got me, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what the world throws, no matter where my woman goes or my partner goes, or my career goes, I got me. I'm
I got
okay.
me. Yeah.
When we can feel that in ourselves, we fear less people leaving us. We don't
Mm-hmm.
fear being abandoned. And a lot of times, what we don't recognize is why we fear abandonment is because we haven't fully faced and felt our way through the things that have been with us for years.
Right.
And so, as long as those have been hidden and stay under wraps, we'll continue to walk with that fear of being abandoned.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I want to acknowledge just as a strategy or just something to really come to terms with is if I'm consistently afraid that my partner will be unhappy with me or will leave, what have I not faced yet in
Yes.
myself?
Yep.
You can look at her or him or whichever and say it has to do with them, but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It has to do with yourself.
Yeah.
And so I would start there. Like, what is it that really got to face in ourselves?
Mm.
And I'm curious with you, Shayna, and your experience, where we might move with this and dance with this in a more nuanced and meaningful way. Because I know you
Yeah.
have a lot of experience with the men listening to this call.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with what you're saying, right? Like if we are dancing on that edge of, am I going to make someone unhappy? Are they going to leave? I agree. There are things we haven't faced, and then we're bound by those, right? We're not free. And I think that is often what I see is that men, especially who come to me and identify as nice guys or people pleasers, it's like there's a place that they haven't landed in themselves or a sovereignty that they haven't found in themselves, that when I love seeing this when I'm working with men and they find that place where they actually know their innate goodness and they know that, that they value themselves, right? They're not trying to get that from the outside, that then there's a real relationship can happen, right? It's not just, okay, we're going to play out the history of my mom and your dad, or your dad and my mom, or my mom and your mom, or right. We're not going to hold up these masks and feel unloved and not talk about it and suffer and struggle and feel alone. Like something real and intimate can really happen. But I think it does take that inner work of knowing yourself and being willing to walk through your shadows and your wounds and your hard places so that you are willing to let something go if it isn't aligned, or you're willing to stand up for yourself and with love, right? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like there's never a time where we have to actually be a jerk, and it's okay because we're all human if we are, but we can get to a place where we actually engage with someone else with that kind of love and curiosity and support and wanting the best for them and ourselves at the same time. I don't know. I just said a lot, so you can tell me what
Well,
you feel
well, you
drawn
made
to in there.
me you made me reminded me of a story just for the name of making this real and
Yeah,
tangible.
please.
First, I want to say that to the comment around being a jerk to others, the more we grow in our own self-respect and self-honoring, we'll find that actually we're never truly jerks to other people
No.
because we see and honor the sovereignty in the other person.
Yeah.
And we're like, they're on their path. I'm on my path. We may not
Right.
agree.
It
We
may
may not
not be
like each other,
aligned exactly, but
but
there's
it
no
doesn't mean
need.
we have to attack each other
Yeah.
or anything like that. The
Yeah.
story that came to me though is I want to go back to when my fiance left me because it's ripe for examples.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had to really face was that I unknowingly in the relationship consistently projected on her, needing her to make me feel okay.
Uh-huh.
And so if I was not feeling okay, somehow it meant that she wasn't doing something right in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard for me to face that. I'm like, oh, I don't know how to be happy on my own.
Yeah.
I don't know how to be happy regardless of what the world is doing or not doing. I need this title in my job to make me feel okay. I need this woman to make me feel okay. And so I made myself weak and powerless by putting it on everyone else to make me feel a certain way. And the moment the world didn't give me what I thought I needed, I would throw a tantrum and become a child.
Yeah.
And the hard part is one, being willing to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's challenging to walk through it.
Yeah.
But three, it is one of the most empowering things to move through and beyond. And another part of that was how I had to come to face and realize that first off, once I stepped away from blaming her for things, I started to notice all the different ways I actually created what happened.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when she would be upset about something, I would immediately fall all over myself to try to make her feel okay,
Yeah.
all while completely ignoring any form of what's going on for me.
Yeah.
Because God forbid my partner be upset. And so, because if she's upset, then I make that mean about me that there's something wrong with me. And
Yeah.
somehow it's my job to keep her happy all the time, which is another illusion.
Another trap, right?
We are not truly responsible for anyone's happiness
Mm-hmm.
ever. We literally cannot make someone happy.
Yeah.
That is an inside job.
Yeah.
And so because I thought she was supposed to make me happy, I thought I was supposed to make her happy. And that was a big like shattering of lies that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
And then the other piece was noticing how I suppressed my own voice. And I'm wondering how many men listening to this can really just nail down a time in the boardroom, the bedroom, the living room, whatever, where they needed to say something. Something was really true for them,
Yeah.
but they suppressed it
Yeah.
for sake of keeping the peace.
Yeah.
And suppress that enough times, and you'll either end up with a health problem or you'll blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happens when we take out on other people what we've been suppressing in ourselves? We lose our relationships, we lose our jobs.
Yeah.
And so those were all things that I had to face in that relationship when it ended. And the bigger thing that I had to face, the biggest lie that I held on to, was that I even wanted to be there.
Wow.
One of the biggest realizations that I had 7 months after we separated was that I had built a life with the white picket fence, the house, the 2 dogs, because I thought I was supposed to. I thought that's what I was supposed to want. And one of the hardest things I had to face was I never wanted any of it.
Wow.
I thought I was supposed to want that. And her and I, we both had a conversation when we had been lying to ourselves. Neither one of us deep down really wanted
it.
We followed it because our parents and our society talked about it's the American dream.
That's what you do. That's how you walk into the rest of your life. And You woke up from that.
And that was really, really hard to face, that I had just been following what I thought I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And foregoing the actual work to discern what it is I truly want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know I work with many men who have gone through divorce. And so I think a lot of times that is the case, right? Oh, we were enculturated to see this is the next step. This is what you do when you love someone and love being, have a feeling and feel sexually attracted. And sometimes, there's like, of course, deep love in one's heart that this is the path we're supposed to take. And this is the box that we are meant to live into. And then waking up to that sometimes decades later and seeing, oh my God, who am I really? And what did I want then? And what do I want now? And it's a powerful journey.
I wonder, Shana, listening to what we've talked about here so far, what do you sense people listening are really, really wanting to know more about?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. I mean, I think as we're kind of starting to wrap up or nearing the end, I am curious. Let's see, where do I want to go with this? Yeah, I'm curious if you have any other ways that you've come back to yourself or found yourself, or, when you say that you recognize that you were living some of these lies, right? It's like, how do you make peace with the fact that you have been living someone else's expectations? How do you make shifts when there are huge risks involved and things, right? Relationships could fall away and careers could fall away, and anything you have on that.
Many of us men are so extrinsically driven, meaning that we're really focused on our responsibilities in the world. How do I support my partnership? How do I support my business? How do I support my children, my finances, all the pieces of our life, right?
Yeah.
And many of us are really good at even working out to care for our bodies and things like that. One of the quickest and most practical ways to come back to myself in the moment is to put my hands on my own body. And what I mean by that is, if I notice my mind is starting to get worked up, I'm starting to feel that fire in my chest, that tension in my chest, that pit in my stomach, that anxiousness. I need to stop what I'm doing, and I need to come back to my own body and really, really get present with what's happening. So if my mind is starting to blame someone, if my mind is starting to spin in circles, if I'm starting to judge another person, if I'm starting to judge myself, I need to immediately just come back and get my hands on my chest, my belly, and really bring presence to my breath and acknowledge the experience that's there. Yes, there are various tools and things that we could talk through, but for the sake of time and where we're at, I want to acknowledge that is the fastest way to bring ourselves back to ourselves, because we're so good at being out in the future. I'm moving towards this. Yes. But you're also like floating around in your life, not present to what's going on, because we're so caught up in the future that we're trying to create, which is beautiful, but we lose sight of being grounded and anchored right now.
Yeah.
And so as we find ourselves getting lost in our heads, our biggest path is bringing ourselves back to our bodies and knowing that, when I can feel solid here in my body, that's how I bring solidity everywhere else.
Yeah. Which does sometimes mean facing, right? If you are feeling panicky or anxious or that knot or hole in your gut, right? There are things sometimes that you have to face once you come back to your body and you recognize, instead of just barreling forward based on that anxiety, I'm actually now going to look at the anxiety. And sometimes we need help with that, right? It's not always just an easy or quick fix, but without doing that, there is a kind of barreling forward in denial and, heading for explosions and things that we weren't preparing ourselves for because we're not seeing what's actually going on.
Yeah. And as a disclaimer for those listening and those that may feel like they have a sense that they may have been ignoring some things for a long time, avoiding some things for a long time.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be gentle with yourself too. And what I mean by that is in first starting moments that you start bringing yourself back to a total presence with your experience, meaning, oof, my chest is really on fire right now, or my belly is just in knots right now. It's not going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
It won't.
Thank you. I'm glad to be honest about that.
And I remember that when I first started therapy 7 years ago, my therapist goes, I want you to go home and I want you to meditate for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I want you to turn off all the noise around you. No phones, no music, no TV, no nothing. I had a panic attack. Like I freaked out. And I had to go outside in the city lights and noise to calm myself to my version of calm at that time.
Yeah.
Calm myself down. And it has been a progressive path over 7 years of working through all the stuff in my nervous system that is there from years of things that I didn't look at. Mm-hmm. The violence from my early years, all the times that I suppressed my anger, all the times I suppressed my sadness, all of that's just living here waiting.
Yeah.
And we get to choose, do we want to start facing that and freeing ourselves from that so that we can free our lives, or do we want to let it keep building up so that eventually it leads to another failed relationship, a health scare, or something worse?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being honest about the fact that it's not easy. And, it's also not easy to run into a wall, right? And to have someone suddenly leave because you haven't been, creating a relationship based on honesty, or to lose a job because you haven't been speaking up for yourself, or any of those things, right? There's, at least in this way, there's a discomfort that we can start to choose, as opposed to the things that are, bound to hit us in the face if we're actually not looking at what's really going on.
That leads me to something really practical that might feel useful for us to share. And I would love to hear your thoughts and any nuance you would add to it, because I know that you have a lot that you offer. One is really just making that decision. Am I willing to start looking at what I don't, that could be keeping me from the relationship I want, the legacy I want, the confidence I want, the success I want, all those things that men say they want. Am I willing to start looking at what might actually really be keeping me from that?
Yeah.
I mean, and really be honest, because all of us men have enough sense of what we're ignoring and what we keep busy distracting ourselves from.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to this knows they do, even if they say they don't.
Yeah.
So that first ask about just the willingness. From that, there's a few pillars of focus you can use to really support you. One is really around facing and feeling. It is really getting to a point to recognize that whatever you're feeling in the moment, regardless of whether you share it with your partner, regardless if you share it with someone else, you yourself need to face it. Mm-hmm. You have to acknowledge in yourself what is there and not ignore it.
Yeah.
Because when we shove that down, that's what we take out on other people.
Right.
That's what ends up festering in our bodies and creates autoimmune diseases and all kinds of health issues.
And it also, the thing that I find too is that it's what has you put up a mask and then not actually feel loved or seen or understood, right? Because you're not actually showing yourself.
And it reminds me of our first conversation, Shane. I've really made it a devotion to just really lean into what is it to be human in every conversation the best I can, and every call, and be fully me. And I remember at the end of our first call where I thanked you for being human with me, and how uncomfortable it was for me to acknowledge that and me to go, wow, so that's what we're working up against right now. And but I love it because it is beautiful in being human.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that for men and women, not just men, we find ourselves surrounded in relationships and businesses where we do not feel safe to express ourselves.
No.
And we have to be willing to acknowledge and face that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so that's a part of the facing and feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one is perspective. the other pillar would be perspective. And it's really just taking a look at, can I hold more than one perspective in this moment? What
Yeah.
other perspectives are available? We have powerful minds, but we only use a fraction of them because we can, especially in a response where we're not paying attention to what we're feeling, we might just zoom in on one perspective. Well, she's the blame.
Yeah.
Or he's an idiot. He's an idiot. But the more perspectives we can hold, the more we have a chance to see what is available for us to offer us guidance.
Yeah.
The other one is posture, just for men, just really thinking about, well, if I'm feeling unconfident at the moment, this is more surface level, but it's useful. What posture am I in right now? Are my shoulders humped over? Am I leaning in? Is my neck down and forward?
Yeah.
Really being able to be mindful of opening our hearts, opening our chest that we often close because we feel unsafe in the world.
Yeah.
And so this is something that can allow us to practice opening up, which is really what we want. We want to be able to walk through the world open and feeling like I can embrace
Relax
anything.
and at ease and right. I got this. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fourth one is movement.
Mm.
If you're feeling, if it's too soon for you to really face and be with what you have in your body, or you're trying to find someone to help you create the safety for it, movement's always a good option. If you're feeling that sense of getting caught in a cycle of blame or fear or judgment towards yourself or the world, movements is a really good one to get out of your head and get back in your body, because it's in our bodies where we can calm back down.
Yeah.
Too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the practicality and the depth and the wisdom. And I do find that it's really, it's powerful to ask oneself, what have I not been fully honest with myself about? It's one of the questions I have in my book around the chapter of, how honest are you with yourself? Like, okay, we can actually skate through our days and have that little wiggle or that sense that there's something going on here, but I'll just push it away, or I'll just keep going, or the other things are more important. And so I love that, starting with that honesty with oneself and really bringing some of those things into the light. And then there gets to be choice. What do I want to do with that? Who do I want to talk to about this? Who's safe that I can bring it to? And that's important.
I'll share a bit of self-honesty right now.
Yeah.
I enjoy our call today. And if I'm honest, there's a part of me that goes, I wish I wouldn't have talked so much and I asked Shayna more questions, because I'm still curious to know more about you. So there's a bit of self-honesty for me, because I'm still curious to know more about you too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, right? Like we can be in the midst of these conversations. And I just love that you admitted that. And that doesn't take away from the incredible depth and all the wisdom that you've offered and everything that you brought here today. And it actually has me feel closer to you and, have a sense of, oh, you're incredibly wise and deep and also human, and we can be real and honest with each other. So thank you for that. And, I always have my own questions at the end of a show, like, was that good for people? And did people get anything out of it? And, was it fast enough, or was it clear enough? Or did I interrupt too much? Or all those questions that I have. And I think part of my practice is letting go into trusting that I don't have to be perfect and I don't have to get it right. And that these conversations are going to speak to who they speak to. And yeah, so that's definitely a practice, because I, like you, am one of those, I can beat myself up till the cows come home. And I'm also just finding recently that it doesn't serve myself or the missions that I have in the world. So thank you for helping my heart open and relax today, and for everyone that you're speaking to and, dropping these seeds of wisdom. And curious where men can find more of you if they want to follow this thread.
Well, what came to me around what you were saying about trusting what lands will lands, I love that, because trust has been a challenging one for me over the years. Trusting myself, trusting what is, what happened. At the same time, there's a playful, curious part of me that goes, Hmm. I wonder if anyone would be willing to reach out to me via email to simply ask questions around what it feels like we didn't get to, or
Yeah.
reach out to both of us or something.
Yeah.
Because like
Let us know.
I was sitting here thinking, I was like, oh, what about that scenario where, okay, I've gotten clear on who I am or this aspect of me, and now I want to go tell my partner about it. And we
Right.
didn't talk about that because we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so what I would love and am open to for anyone that's interested is if you want to reach out and ask some tangible questions about what we talked about here, reach me at matt@matthoganworldwide.com, and I'm happy to answer every email.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And you guys know that I'm here to support you. So reach out and let us know what you thought and what questions you have. And thank you so much, Matt, for being here today and for going on the real, raw ride of being human and being willing to face it all. I appreciate that.
Messy, but
The
yet
messy.
beautiful ride.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Shana.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word alive, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.